Just get there before the storm really hits. And listen, do whatever you need to do to get back alive. You're needed. Plow out.
Greetings and salutations, my fellow gamers. My name is AFarCryAway, and today's video is all about The Division and its new survival mode DLC.
Warning. Infection detected.
So, short and simple conclusion on the DLC is that it is definitely worth the $15 asking price. I do believe there is enough content there to keep many people happy, and it will also just be a good DLC to play if you're into Battle Royale kind of games. But what really sets this survival mode DLC apart from any other kind of Battle Royale game like H1Z1 is that it was never designed from the ground up to be a Battle Royale survival mode. It was actually something implemented, much later. And I mean, I guess H1Z1's was implemented later as well, but I think there was always a plan to have that kind of mode in that game, whereas in The Division they did plan it, but it was based around almost like an RPG system. So, in other words, it's not like you just pick up an M4 and ammunition. No, you've got to pick up like M4s, and then there's certain stats on that M4, and etc, etc. And all of the gear you pick up has meaning. Everything in The Division survival mode actually has a purpose and a use. So for starters, it's actually a really cool setup. You go into the mission with your helicopter being downed in the middle of the worst blizzard to ever happen, and in the middle of that, you're also left exposed without a hazmat suit because your gas mask broke, and you're left infected and cold and freezing to death in Manhattan. From there, you have to pretty much find your way to any source of fire or heat or internal shelter in a building, and go ahead and find items to craft better clothing and equipment to survive the harsh conditions. And as bog standard as that might sound for a survival mode, it's actually a lot deeper than you would think, as there's different thermal ratings for each different type of clothing in the game, and there's a lot of different types of clothing in the game. A lot of it looks similar, but it's slightly different. That also goes for different like harnesses, vests, and helmets and such that you find along the way. With each little incremental stat boost, you can become more and more powerful to the point where you can actually start to fight off enemies in the environment. And the closer that you get to extraction in the dark zone, which is in the center of the city, the harder and harder the enemies get till you get to the end, and you're fighting pretty much the most badass enemies possible to fight in the game. And I really find this concept of a rush to the middle of the city interesting, because yes, you could be the first one to make it to the dark zone and to make it towards the extraction point, but there's a good chance that if you're trying to go to the extraction too early, there's no way you will be able to actually make it out of there alive, because there will be too many enemies that are way too high level for you, and not to mention that you don't have any backup if you just rush there by yourself. And that's another really interesting concept of this mode, is that there's a lot of metas that can form around getting to the center of the city, like when is it good to do so, or what exact gear level do you need before heading in there to be comfortable heading in there, or what kind of supplies do you need, and what are some good routes to take to get towards the center of the city. And on your way to the center of the city, you're going to run into other players. Now, if you chose to play in PvE mode, there's almost no reason not to group up with anyone you can find. Now, if you're playing PvP, you will notice some players might try to be hostile on sight, because that's just how these kind of games are. You will note that most of the time, the people who are hostile early are not going to be very experienced, at least not yet in these early weeks of the survival mode being out. So I'm sure they're going to be a lot easier to get away from and or fight off. But, never never keep these people out of your sight. Even if they're in your group, apparently they can go rogue on you, so just keep that in mind. You can also enter survival with your friends and kind of meet up and do your own survival strategies. And I really do like that, that they didn't make it where you can't do this with friends. However, I am almost assuredly going to say that in the PvP mode, big groups of players who have a lot of friends with them are probably just going to win every time. So that might be a little bit frustrating for people who just want to play the PvP mode solo. But then again, there's always PvE, and the only difference between the PvE and PvP rewards, as I can tell so far, is that there is a 0.25% rewards boost to the PvP versus the PvE. So it's just a slight hit on your rewards, but it's really nothing that severe, and you're more likely to get farther in PvE, as most everyone's going to be working together and grouping up and helping you. And this is really, like, a blast to play. I mean, I'm not even trying to, like, shill for the Division or anything, but this has been an exemplary game mode that really does belong in this game. This world that they crafted in the Division is just too large and too pretty to not be taken advantage of in the way that they did for this DLC. And I think it's a fantastic job on Ubisoft's part, and I think this is probably, if you have the Division, a reason to come back and get into the game. And that's not even talking about the reworking to the world tier difficulties in the baseline game. Now, if you still enjoyed the baseline game, and I actually still enjoy the baseline game, there is still a lot of reason to play it, as there's world tier difficulties now. You can go from 1 to 5. I think 5 is the latest one and the most difficult one. And, yeah, if you like playing with a group of friends and, like, going through the dungeons and such, they're not really dungeons, they're like missions, but you know what I mean. If you like going through the missions on really hard difficulties, the world tier system is going to make that a lot more exciting than it used to be, and the rewards are going to be a lot better, so there's a good reason to do it. And, yes, none of that gear transfers into survival, but the survival gear that you extract and or get from just, you know, dying and playing the game is actually going to be allocated to your main player in the baseline game, so there is a reason to play survival and the base game, because it's going to make your base game character even stronger by getting these really cool, unique rewards. Also, they've added a crap ton of new weapons to the game, one of which being the Thompson, which I cannot wait to get my hands on, because, I mean, it's a fucking Tommy gun, man. You know? You're in New York with a Tommy gun. It can't get any better than that. So, yes, that's all for the video today. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, hit that like button, and please do subscribe, because this channel needs every subscriber it can get. And, yeah, hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you all in the next video. Peace out.